Goodness me! Apologies for the lag there, ladies and gents, on the stream. Getting some new tech in this next week, so by the time we stream next, everything should be sorted out. But yeah, that is painfully slow. Welcome everyone to the Nip and a Half Fantasy Football Podcast and Fantasy Football Hub with myself and Paul. Paul, exciting times. Our last pod before you go away on honeymoon and before Gameweek 1. I'm very interested on what you've kind of spoken to your bride around, your first Friday evening on honeymoon. Will you be, wining and dining her and, walking along the beach at sunset? Or will you be head deep in your phone picking your fantasy teams?
Well, the problem with it being the first weekend of the season is that in the deadlines, so Telegraph runs right up until the last minute as well. So my usual 30-minute window, I need an hour and a half window. So disclaimer, I'll make sure that that's read out prior to boarding the plane tomorrow.
So I got a chance of beating you this year, based on the fact that there's no way you're going to get like a 3-hour window, right, between what would it be, like 5:30 and 8 o'clock or whatever it would be.
Maybe that's a good thing. Last minute tinkering. I don't know how often that does actually help.
Indeed. Anyway, Community Shield yesterday. Really interested in your thoughts. I don't know if you watched it. I watched it. I really enjoyed it. Really good game.
Yeah. So Liverpool looked really poor defensively. I know Van Dijk had a poor game. Gravenberch is suspended for the first game of the season as well. So, he got sent off at the tail end last year. So it looks like there's going to be nobody in that holding role to drop in if Kerkez and Frimpong are both playing and both going to be bombing on. So I'm now less interested in Liverpool defence from an FPL perspective. Anyway, it was the only game that I was considering a Liverpool defender and putting Van Dijk in. So I've gone off that idea, knowing that their second and third fixture weren't particularly great anyway. So that's the one takeaway, I think, the main takeaway that I've got that's influenced my team. I wasn't particularly bullish on Palace players, more so on their opening fixtures rather than the form of the team that they've been in good form in pre-season anyway. So it didn't really affect my thought process there. Maybe dampens Ez's appeal, the fact that he didn't take the penalty, then when he got the penalty in the shootout, he missed it. And Salah's probably, well, I say probably, is probably the main takeaway. And Twitter X went into meltdown after he missed the penalty in the shootout, and people scrapping their teams. And I know that you had put out a tweet the previous day. Is it still called a tweet on X? I don't know.
I think so.
And saying that the Community Shield, whilst I know that you're a better manager than it was almost a tongue-in-cheek comment anyway. But if you'd got through the Community Shield unscathed from a Salah Hall performance, that you would stick to your guns in terms of not picking him in FPL. But I could see a lot of people changing their mind on it, albeit a couple of things on that. The one game where I think I am somewhat wavering is in Telegraph on his ownership, because it can't kill you with a haul in the first game because of the non-double captaincy. And it was something that you had put into my head last week, and I started thinking about it slightly different in the way it was intended, I think, perhaps, when you'd said about the 5-for-2 or 4-for-1 Salah situation. And for me, I wouldn't think of it like that at the start of the season because I'm not going to be doing hop on, hop off. But if there was a 5-for-2 or a 4-for-1, that means that even if you remove the first game, then there's a 5-for-3.
5-for-3,
or 4-for-2 from just not starting with Salah. And I was like, do I really want him in the second and third game anyway away to Newcastle? Maybe Newcastle aren't looking particularly great in pre-season. And then Arsenal game, and then that means, and I hadn't looked at the kickoff times post the first international break, but Liverpool don't play until the Sunday, and that's kind of the start of their nice run of fixtures. So that is the one game that I am considering not starting with him for, and it was a combination of his form in the Community Shield and also what you had what you had said before. But it'll all be dependent on what team I get by taking him out rather than anything else, I think.
So you won't spread the funds, or will you? Will you spread his funds? Because obviously, if you spread his funds,
I was pretty happy with my team outside of like having him in the team in Telegraph, so that's playing into my thought process.
yeah. I think for the Community Shield, I did say that semi tongue in cheek, but I also just wanted to see how dangerous he looked, how how the whole Liverpool
I thought
attack
you were going to
looked.
see. I thought you were going to say I wanted to see how Twitter would
Yeah,
react.
well, there is that as well, but I just think I've not really seen much before of Verts or Ekatike, but I was super impressed with both of them. Actually, I obviously knew Verts was a top class player. Um, I've not seen him play much before in the flesh, but I was so impressed. What a footballer he is! Goodness me! And Ekatike, I was really impressed with as well. Actually, I thought he took his goal really, really well. He missed that header at the start. I think it was the start of the second half, which kind of just landed on him right in front of goal. He managed to head it wide, but I think if he'd have scored that, I think if that had gone in, I think Ekatike would be a lot more popular ahead of Game Week 1 anyway. Obviously, the different games lend themselves to how long you want to hold a player for. Just for example, FPL, I probably am going with Ekatike now because I think he starts next week. And with my chip strategy being very aggressive, I'm kind of happy to move him on anyway in Game Week 3, let's say. Whereas obviously it's very, very different in Telegraph and to a lesser extent Dream Team, because Telegraph is it's a longer term game. And Dream Team, I think you can strike the balance there, but I've given a lot of thought this preseason. It's the first preseason in a few years where I've really, really thought about my strategy on all three games, and my risk appetite, how much I'm willing to gamble on players or not for a good start or not. And if we are going to start on Telegraph, I get it with Salah. But I always think back again. I was thinking back, and as someone Ian Parrin has always said, he mainly used it in relation with the Sky game, but he's on about good teams and good players as well. Because in Telegraph, as an example, at the moment I've got a front three of Salah, Haaland, and Larson. So I think you mentioned that last week. Actually, that was your front three, and after
Yeah,
looking at it all, I think it makes absolute sense when you consider that the enablers that are available. But I really fancy Evan Nielsen as well. I really fancy Evan Nielsen. I think he's going to be a really good pick this year because he was injured for a large chunk of last year. He scored
yeah,
a lot of points, and I think he's quite cheap.
yeah. Johnny Curry on your Telegraph
He
pod
did. He
during the week was quite high on Evan Nielsen. I did listen to all 2 hours 40 minutes of that. So
It's a long old trek. But then I do think as well, this whole thing about the Liverpool team, the Bournemouth team, we're already probably going to have Semenyo in my team as well. Do I really want double Bournemouth attack? I mean, they're not a great team, right? I mean, they're going to do okay. He may or may not get the start in the Carabao Cup. So even though I was talking about the 5-for-3, if they do play a weakened team in the Carabao Cup, which we don't know if they will or not, that then turns into a 4-for-3, and then you're talking about Liverpool attack versus Bournemouth attack. So I think with that in mind, on Telegraph, I think I'm just gonna play it super not safe, but play it super boring and just get out a rock steady team, cover the two super high owned players in Salah and Palmer, because that was my downfall last year. And just trust that, using the 45 transfers over the season, using, all our sort of experience and insight and, the amount of hours that we spend looking through these things that, will come up trumps. So that's, I think with the Salah situation specifically on Telegraph, I think he's, for me, a set and forget until AFCON anyway. Sorry, yeah, let's just stay on Telegraph a second. Any other kind of thoughts on your team? Has your team changed much in the last sort of week or so on Telegraph? Mine haven't either since the pod anyway.
yeah, six of my seven forward players haven't changed. the one change I made was when Morgan Rogers got injured last week.
Yeah.
I don't know how confident in Emery. He's not a person to pull the wool over your eyes like an Eddie Howe in press conferences. I don't know how assured I'd have to be that Rodgers was going to start to then refactor him in. What was interesting actually on your pod as well, another takeaway was I I think that you recorded before Rodgers got injured. I could be wrong on that, but I would have thought that he'd be a lock in everybody's team on that basis and wasn't, which was somewhat surprising. And I don't know if it's because he doesn't get that many tackles, and therefore when you're working out the value
Yeah.
in comparison to some other players on top of his attacking output, does that transition well into his, what was it, 0.8, 0.9
Yeah.
price rise over from last season. So that's the only change I've made. I've taken Rodgers out, put in another midfielder, and with the additional budget, I've made like a tweak at the back to cover off somebody that I was more unsure of. I think the true fair from Bournemouth perspective, maybe I've re-looked at their fixtures at the start of the
See
season,
that now,
and
mate.
whilst I'm sure he'll be fine over the course of the season, and like it might be, you put the budget enabler in and it might do all right. I just don't necessarily like their fixtures from a defensive point of view. I prefer them from an attacking point of view. So I wouldn't put you off Semenyo or Evan Nielsen, and I think Truefair I'll be the first choice. I don't think he'll play the cup game because they've got the Argent Soler, isn't it? I'm pretty sure would play the cup game in that situation. So I kind of went off him and I've just used the extra money that I downgraded Rodgers to upgrade him in defence.
You put
So
me on to
that's the only two.
Truefair. You put me on to him, and I've got zero
Well,
point
you
zero
put
left
me
in the
onto
bank.
you put me onto him. You put me onto him, and then
I put him on.
I'm
I put him onto you. You wrote it in your Telegraph article as an essential player, or was it an essential player or budget enabler or something?
yeah.
You then convinced me back. I
I think
I think he's
he
staying
plays.
in. I think
He
he's
plays, and
staying.
he plays, and he's 2.3 million. So
Yeah.
there's nothing. I'm not suggesting that his place is up for debate or anything like
Unless I
that.
don't pick Salah, but yeah, interesting. Another player which came out really, really highly. Well, there was a couple one there. Semenyo, just based on last year's stats, was superb value. And Elliot Anderson, I know he's the new sort of darling, the DEFCON darling in the FPL, but I think he came out really well as well, didn't he? Look, when we're kind of looking at players, looking at stats, looking at fixtures and things. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. I love that. Nobles just put the true fair hurts. Brilliant. That is absolutely class. Nobles. Welcome everyone in the chat. Dave Hannigan is in. Gary Plant. Noble says expecting great things tonight. I'm not sure about that. Nobles. Brownie. Lee Giles. Everywhere I look, I see Lee Giles' name. Normally above me somewhere. Keith Ledger is in. Jason Manners. Cloudy. He says, evening fellas. How many players in all three of your teams? That is an interesting question. I don't think many. Don't think many at all. Maybe Palmer for me. Maybe.
Palmer and Salah for me, and that's it.
Viney, always a relief once the first game kicks off to end the overthinking. Absolutely. Rhubarb is in as well. And Josh Wilkinson asked a Dream Team question. We'll come back to that now. Chris Harvey is in. Apologies, I'm late. Chris, absolutely fine, mate. No worries at all. Viney says, remember how people thought Darwin New was a better buy than Haaland when they debuted in a Community Shield? That is a good point. That's a good point. But yeah, I was super impressed by Vert. He's actually make me rethinking
As a player or a fantasy asset.
I think
though.
both. I was, as a player, I thought he was, oh my goodness, silky. Just doesn't even like his touch, his turn of foot, his passes, the through balls. He obviously had the assist. If Salah had scored, I think Salah had one shot on target. That would have come from a Verts assist. And there was a period toward the end of the game as well where Verts kind of found himself right on the edge of the area with a lot of room, and he boomed it over the bar, but he found himself in a lot of space. it wasn't like he was playing a Fernandes role where he was sort of, playing really deep and feeding the ball forward. He was up there as well. So, yeah, super impressed. Should we look at? Well, I just suppose just to finish off on Telegraph then, Paul. Strategically, I think strategically, I'm going to maybe play a couple of Carabao players early doors, but I'm not going all out on them because I don't want to use transfers early doors really.
Well, it was interesting as well. So, one other takeaway I took from your pod, I should be your official
You
summarizer
should.
of. If you don't want to listen for 2 hours and 40 minutes,
Paul can do it in 20 seconds.
come and get my recap.
Yeah.
But one thing you guys talked about was how strong the Premier League teams went in the League Cup last year, and it was only Everton and West Ham that went strong in the first round, and both of them have different managers now to
Yeah,
when
exactly.
they put out the team there as well. So that is worth bearing in mind from a starting 11 position. Thinking there, I know you think you're kind of high on Bruno in terms of starting the League Cup, and I'm not going to argue for or against that point,
Yeah.
but it is worth bearing that in mind that I don't think that you should set up your starting 11 to factor that in. However, if a player that's playing regular looks like his first team regular starts in the Carabao Cup, then maybe there's an opportunity to use a transfer or something like that to transition at that point in time.
I don't think, our Telegraph WhatsApp group, I think you're going to be bored again this first half of the season because the message from me, as usual, is going to be all your transfers, which I know everyone's sick to death of hearing the first half of the season. But hopefully all the new ones who joined us last year over from Sky, could feel the benefit in the second half when it all comes to fruition. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. The pod that Paul's alluding to, if you don't know, is on this channel. It's the TFF podcast. It is a long one. It's 2 hours 40, but we did have Johnny Curry, who is the reigning TFF champion and Ultimate Fantasy champion, on as well, giving some incredible insights, as well as the usual brilliant stuff from Carl and Luke. So it's on this channel. Go on videos. It's a long old watch and listen, but worth it.
What you've done really well as well, I'm full of compliments today, is set out the key topic at the bottom bar. So when you're scrolling through, and I went back to try and find a spot as well when I was prepping for this pod, and go straight to the drafts. But by the way that you've got the scroll icon in there as well, which I thought was really good.
Cool. Thank you, mate. Appreciate that. I'm not used to compliments off you. I'm used to.
So I'm going on holiday tomorrow, so I'm in a very good mood. So
I'm used to backhanded compliments off you. rather than forward.
The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away in the same breath.
Yeah, exactly that. You used to be a good fantasy manager, Fergie. Shall we talk about Dream Team?
Yeah.
My team hasn't changed much again over the last 3 or 4 days. Got pretty steady. 6 or 7 maybe. Still a few places up for grabs. I think I'm definitely in on Palmer, Bruno, Haaland, Bowen, maybe Salah. I think the rest are for grabs really. Any nailed players in your team?
Like similar. I want 4 out of. Sorry, I want 4 into 3 positions up front. So the 3 forwards you mentioned, and I really fancy Watkins. I know it's not a revolutionary comment, but I feel that they could batter Newcastle and Open and
you said that last week. I put him into my FPL team based on you saying that as well.
I've got a feeling, and I've got nothing against Newcastle in terms of, I guess, proximity. I don't have an English club or follow an English club. I guess in proximity that I feel closer to Newcastle being from the north. So if there was any bias, it would be for Newcastle rather than against. But I've got a feeling I think Villa look like very strong, fit. I think Watkins looks really fit. I think his movement's been great in pre-season as well as his goal scoring. So I really fancy him to start strong. So for me it's four forwards, Salah, Bowen, Haaland, Watkins into three. I have got a player in my team who I have not seen in a single draft or mentioned anywhere across any pod, across
Really?
any article written in my starting 11 just now. And I'm very, very happy with it. Not that this isn't like, I wouldn't say it's a gem of any any stretch that's going to go out and get a 20 pointer in the first weekend. So as far as differentials go, I'm like I was pretty happy with that.
Is he
A couple of
is he a 3 million midfielder? No. Okay.
no, as a defender.
Okay.
Um, a couple of surprising things I think is maybe on some of the ownership on some players. I mean, just based on the budget expense and how people set on a team, and the fact that he scored at the weekend, I thought Maxim de Kuyper would be much higher percentage owned than he is, and not necessarily when I'm comparing him to heavy hitting defenders from some of the big teams,
Yeah.
but more so just on Brighton's opening fixtures, the fact he could play the Carabao
Yeah,
Cup,
he's in my team.
but at less than 5%, I would have expected him to be maybe a little bit higher. I think it looks like he might suit this game pretty, like the Dream Team game pretty well.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, he's in
and
my
and
team,
again,
definitely. We've got
yeah.
room.
So I was surprised at his ownership, and I think Bowen as well, at less than 10% surprised me, like 9.5%. Again, I know under different management, I've already made that point, but he could play Carabao Cup in the second game. So just a couple of things there. I think where I am just now, if we've got no more team news out, 10 of my 11 spots are pretty secure, and then I'm debating my last midfielder spot, and there's a few people on my short list. Minta, Dewsbury Hall.
Yeah.
I think Dewsbury Hall starts, and so he was on corners, set pieces. He created two big chances as well. I had a little look on SofaScore after the game, and it looked like he was very creative. So I could see Dewsbury Hall having a good season, and 3 million's good value. But I'm in two minds because I'm likely going to play and die, and I don't necessarily want to double up on Everton attack.
Yeah, same. I've probably got two, maybe three spots. I'm not really happy with my keeper. I've got the Bradgren still. I don't really know what I'm going to do yet. Is the Sunderland keeper
Two
Roex?
million.
He's 2 million. I'll probably move to him. Maybe I'm not sure yet. It depends if I can fight. At the moment, I've got a 3 million player in midfield, which is why I was asking, because that's the spot I think the rest I'm reasonably happy with, and that's the spot I'm not really. I've got Wilson in at the moment from Fulham, but I think this Arias at Wolves could potentially
Yeah.
be, a real sort of.
He was on all set pieces as well, and I think I think he's got different routes to points in this game as well. I like him.
Exactly. I think he could be like a breakout player.
I just picked him up in draft
Oh,
when I
nice.
did a draft game last night.
Yeah, so he's my other one, and there's a couple of players you mentioned, Dewsbury Hall as well, but I have got Njai currently in my draft and O'Brien as well. I don't really want three Everton players. Interestingly, really good point from Nobbles in the chat. He says Moyes was with West Ham and went strong last year. Now he's with Everton, so you can probably expect a strong Everton team in the Carabao, which makes sense. And Everton's fixtures are pretty good to start as well. But you have to remember they are Everton, and this is back to my point about teams as well. Do you really want double Everton attack?
Well,
Right,
yeah,
when there's other options available.
it's avenues to points as well. Right,
Yeah,
so
that's fair.
I guess
That's
you can
fair.
make the argument both ways as well,
Yeah,
because Dewsbury Hall, if he is on set pieces, you
yeah,
expect
that's fair.
points to come that way. Because McNeil used to do really, really well in this format. I know he's kind of out of favour just now. And then Dye does well in the defensive, like tackles and stuff as well. So yeah, I've got 3.5. So Minto was the other one I was like maybe considering midfield as a potential option.
Yeah, I think Minter was. I an option I was looking at as well. I was going to have a
Well, he'll be 0.5 out your price range, I think. Then if you're
yeah. I've taken Porro out, which I'm not happy with, but because they're not in the Carabao, he was a
he's
staple
my
in my team last time.
yeah yeah he's my Van Dijk replacement in FPL.
Oh, I got it. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I really want him for the Burnley game because I really feel he can do serious damage. But if you do have him, it means you can't have Salah, Haaland, Bruno, Palmer unless you have a really cheap third forward, for example. I've been looking at Evan Nielsen maybe again in this, obviously because he may have the extra game, but I feel strategy wise, whereas Telegraph just happy to sit with the masses. I think I'm reasonably happy to sit with the masses as well in Dream Team, but there are lots of opportunities as well. But you don't want to get too far behind because there's so many good Dream Team managers as well that if you do make 2 or 3 mistakes in the opening game weeks, you don't want to be catching up with the 200 or 300 real elite Dream Team managers who just won't make mistakes all season.
Yeah, I put a poll in the hub chat earlier on today. I wanted to see how the Community Shield and like changed uh, influence of people. So I put a poll out with 3 Salah options in your team and captain in your team but not captain and not in your team, and it was still a landslide victory for in the team and captain. And if it if it hadn't been, and that was an indicator, and kind of mirrored what was on Twitter and stuff like that, knowing that there's a lot of engaged people are looking for content on Twitter and such like that, that maybe that would have influenced me to reconsider position. But I'm like you, I wouldn't. I know transfer preservation is going to come into play a little bit in Dream Team this year in terms of like full pivot of teams, knowing that you can roll up to 6 transfers, but I wouldn't be off removing Salah after game week 1 if he blanks and then replace him with an Arsenal player, provided you get the price increase and then the fixture coming up, Leeds at home, that you expect Arsenal to do well in the second game. So maybe it is best to start with him and knowing that you can move off.
This is the thing is, we'll come on to FPL in a minute because I'm not going with him in FPL, but if Salah does bang game week 1, the difference in FPL is you can have other Liverpool assets and kind of cover him, I feel. You can't in Dream Team because they're all
Yeah,
so expensive and there's all other places up for grabs as
yeah.
well. So
The price is narrower
this
from
is
where
it.
he is today, so you can't use the money as well as you can in
Exactly.
FPL, right?
Exactly that. Just a question from Josh. He asks around with the 7.5 boys, how many points do they realistically need to get not to drop in price? Feel like we may be able to get them in game week 4 for a cheaper price. Yeah, you're right, Josh. I think that they'll probably have to get 9 or 10 points probably to avoid a drop, but it's not about that this time of the season. I don't think it's about. For me, it's not making mistakes. What do you think, Paul?
I go in the general rule of thumb of the points per the price they're at. So
Yeah.
if you get 8 points, that or like 7 or 8 points, that should roughly keep you
Okay.
on par. There is some. Well, nobody knows the formula. Mike FF stuff does a great job
Yeah.
at refining his model to try and keep on trend with it. But if you remember last season, Kelleher just kind of kind of ruined anybody's thought process around it. My general rule of thumb, sorry, is what the price is. That's the points that they need to get to retain value, roughly.
Good stuff. That is Dream Team. Excited for the season. I really like the changes. I like the change in Telegraph actually. I like the changes in Dream Team. I think the transfer changes are really good. I think we're going to see a real variety of teams. And yeah, it's going to be interesting because it's easy to sit here now and say, oh, I'm going to do so and so to so and so in game week 2. It's such aggressive, the price drops and changes. Can you really afford to hold on, save your transfers when you could lose £1.2 million in a week? It's going to be
And
really interesting.
take a bit of what Johnny Curry said on the Telegraph pod in the Dream Team. He's got two considerations when he makes a transfer. One is he making a a fixture game, which you're not in Dream
Yeah,
Team,
no.
right? So take that aside. But the second point, very interesting, is like you made the point that the player coming in has to strengthen my positional 11. And if you think of it from that perspective, so don't chase a price rise just from a player that's
Yeah, of
rised in
course.
that's rose in price. Think about, does that make my team better for the long run, and what does my plan look like from there? And I think that's right, like that's something that you could definitely transition into this game and take that advice in.
I personally always look maybe 3 weeks in advance. I very rarely do a 1 week move. Sometimes I might not even do a 2 week move unless it's like a massive Haaland home
Yep.
captaincy. Then I might do it. But I generally look and think, if I'm going to want this player for the foreseeable, I'll bring him in. If not, I'm always thinking. But again, this time of season is a touch different because you say if Salah blanks and Saka or Gyökeres go off in the first week, that switch is going to be
Yeah, it's
inevitable.
easy.
It's going to be
Yeah,
inevitable
yeah.
for all engaged players for two reasons. So yeah, it's good. It's going to be interesting. Let's have a look at FPL. Sounds like you're happy with Salah's performance yesterday. You think he's captain material. You think he's the
I,
main
I'm
man.
just I'm just similar to other formats. I'm happy with how I've set the team out,
Yeah,
to the point where I don't know how I would use the money
that's a fair point.
that's enough to warrant the risk of not going with them.
I'll show you now if you want. But yeah, you carry on.
No, so I'm confident, and I'm sticking to playing the aggressive strategy of which you've sold me
Oh, you
on.
are you? Are you doing that? Oh,
Yeah.
brilliant. Nice. I like that.
So I imagine not too dissimilar chip strategy from you. Um, Unlike in Dream Team, where I've picked out the best budget enabler that nobody else has picked out, the person will end up with negative points in the first week, no doubt. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how I've set the team. The one player that I've got in that I'm in two minds about is João Pedro up front. Like, I think he's
Yeah.
looked good when I've seen him. I know that he's a minute's risk, and it doesn't matter as much about his ownership because nobody's going to captain him, or very few will captain him. But I just don't know. If I knew Solanke was fit and was definitely going to start, I would have Solanke in that role instead. But outside of that, I'm pretty happy with how it's set up. Yeah.
If Solanke comes on in the second half against PSG for like 20, 30 minutes and it's fairly obvious that he's going to play on the weekend, are you going to risk it or not? Or would you just go with João Pedro?
If it's fairly obvious, I think I'd have to convince myself that he
If he
was
comes
definitely
on,
going to
looks
start.
really sharp and scores.
Yeah, Andrews Charleston looked poor when
Yeah,
getting
well,
replaced.
this is it. Isn't it?
Yeah,
There,
yeah.
there are alternatives, is the thing, right? There's no need to take the risk as that because I think it's fairly obvious that João Pedro is gonna play really, really on form. My only thing with the Chelsea players is I do rate Palace, and I think that it's going to be a close game. I could see it being like a 1-1 or something, So that's the only thing
They
with
did give up
going
chance.
double
They did give
Chelsea.
up They did give up chances. I've been
Yeah,
impressed. I've been more impressed with Palace going forward than
that's
necessarily defensively in pre-season. But
that's a good point. Yeah, well, I was suitably impressed enough yesterday with Florian Wirtz and Ekiteke to take on Salah in FPL. So I'm going to go down the uber aggressive route of playing a bench boost in game week 1, free hitting in game week 2, and probably wild carding in game week 4, I think, because obviously all the players who play in game week 1 all play home in game week 3. So I've spread the money out. At the moment, the team I'm looking in front of me, which looks a bit wild, which I'm not sure I'll finish up with this. It's got Wirtz, Ekiteke, and Gakpo. I'm not sure I'm not sure I'll run with that. I mean, it is pretty. I think the way that FPL is playing out this year with the extra chips, etc., I do think, and I think I touched on this last week, I do think you can take a massive gamble, and I don't think that the downside will hurt as much as the potential of what the upside will do for you, if that makes sense. Out of the
yep,
three formats, I think this is the format where if Salah goes ahead and bangs a couple of goals and I haven't got him as captain and I own 2 or 3 of Wirtz, Gakpo and Ekitike, it's very likely that, you know, the other players will get the assists. If they win 4-0 and Salah gets 2, it's likely Gakpo might get one, or Wirtz will get an assist, or wherever else. You feel it's likely it's going to be spread, especially on the evidence of what I saw yesterday. And I wasn't taking that one game as that's it, take Salah out, because Salah wasn't in my team. What I was viewing it as was, is Salah playing up front, which he wasn't. Did Salah have loads of, was it Salah? Oh, it absolutely wasn't. And I was very impressed also by Wirtz and Ekitike. So it's kind of backed up what I was saying rather than it's changed my mind, if that makes sense. So, you know, it's going to be until the deadline when I actually make all my moves. We're going to get team news. There's going to be some change somewhere. Right? There's going to be, you know, I don't know, Palmer wasn't seen training today, which, you know, something like that, which will change everything, right? But I think as it stands, the potential upside of a Salah blank or even a semi-blank, you know, even Salah 1 goal, I wouldn't be too disheartened if the rest of the players. So bench boost in game week 1, obviously not having Salah can get out really strong bench boosts. Like my front 3 is Watkins, João Pedro and Ekitike. I've also got Porro, Milenkovic, Murillo, you know, Palmer, Wirtz, got all these players, you know, it's a really strong 15. So if Salah does blank or semi-blank, I feel I can get a nice lead before free hitting in game week 2. And just having a quick look at the fixtures you can attack in game week 2, the massive one obviously is Arsenal, right? So Arsenal, I think, did look a bit better yesterday. They're home to Leeds. Like, how nice would it be, right? Because looking at the template at the moment, there's no Saka, there's no Gyökeres, there's no one, right? Everyone's tucked into bed with Palmer, Bruno, Salah. So the potential upside of that one fixture alone, captain in one of those players, I think is huge. There's also a few other fixtures. I quite like Bournemouth home to Wolves. I like the thought of having, you know,
Evan Nielsen.
If Spurs look really poor, I can jump onto Man City, right? You can jump on and captain Haaland. You can have Haaland and Marmoush. You can do all these things. And I think we're going to learn a lot in game week 1 about teams to target potentially in game week 2. You know, if Sunderland look incredibly poor, for example, you know, if Burnley look poor, if these other teams look, if Everton are all over the shop, you know, if United look great, you know, there's the potential to have a look at Cunha and Wemo, or even Sesko, a 7.5. We'll get to see if Newcastle are as bad as we think they're going to be against Villa before they play Liverpool. So that's my thinking, that, you know, if after the first 2 game weeks you can get, you know, a really good lead, go into game week 3 again with a strong team. I won't have Salah. I mean, you know, and again, the beauty of it is you can depending on where you are, you can make a decision, right? I could decide, do you know what, I've seen enough. Salah's home in game week 3. He's also got Burnley game week 4. I could just wildcard and bring in Salah. You know, you can just react if you want, and this is the difference for me between FPL and the other formats. The other formats are just pure longevity, discipline. And FPL, the way they've done it this year, I think the 2 changes, I think the chips, and I also think defensive contributions as well are going to be undervalued, as we know from playing things like Sky and DreamTeam. It's those extra points that tickle along every single week. You know, Elliot Anderson averages 3 to 4 points a week at 5.5. You know, you would take 1 assist off a 6 or 6.5 million player every week, right? Yeah. So if it works, laughing. If it doesn't work, all right, a bit gutted, but it's not the end of the world. And that to me is the big difference with FPL and the other teams and the other formats. So I'm going for it, and I'm going to have fun with it. And I'm going to be at a Fantasy Football Fest on Friday night. I'm probably going to be in the 5% of people who haven't got Captain Salah, which will be really, really good fun, I'm sure. But regardless, I put a lot of thought into it, and I'm trusting my process with it. And if the outcome doesn't work out, if Salah bangs a hat-trick, what can I do? But yeah, I think the only way of getting a really, really, really top finish in FPL this year is going to be by getting a quick start, because you're going to be swimming against the tide all season, against people who are going to use chips really early on. people didn't get lucky as well. So yeah. So you're on the similar train, but not on the Salah train.
That's
you are on the
correct.
Salah train. Sorry, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I'm playing pretty aggressively. Whether I follow that exact chip strategy or not, I'll be somewhat similar to that. Like, like maybe two chips in the first 4 weeks rather than the three. But yeah, so I'm pretty happy. I'm looking forward to the season in FPL, which
I'm exactly
I've
the
not done the
same.
last 2 or 3 years, and even like going onto Twitter and looking at team reveal articles and whatnot. I don't take very much from that much. It's usually little snippets of like commentary that I look forward to more so. But there's no. I feel for the first year and maybe 4 or 5 years that there's not a template, and maybe it's just the same type of content that I read or what. But I think any diversity in the game is a good thing.
I think it's really exciting, and it's the first time I've been excited for FPL in a long time. Because I do think, rightly or wrongly, it's the effort you put in and how you play is the least reflective in your kind of rank. Whereas I do feel how you play in the other games is reasonably reflective, of how you play and the risks you take. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting, mate. Okay, well, I'll see about doing a pod next week. But you'll be back 2 weeks. We'll be looking ahead then to game week 3, so it'll be after our free hits in game week 2. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, thank you, mate. Anything to add before we go?
No, I think that was it. For those listening that aren't in the Ultimate Fantasy League already, drop Fergie your details. Even like you don't need to play the cash element of it. It's free to enter and pit your wits against other engaged managers that enjoy playing all the formats.
Yeah, have a look on my X account at FFH_Fergie. There's details of Ultimate Manager, and also I'm running a £10 Telegraph League as well, which is always super competitive, super good fun. So if you fancy a dabble in either, drop me a DM. We've also got the Telegraph pod, I say we did with Luke and Carl, and last year's champion Johnny Curry, which is a long listen, but hopefully it's really, really useful. Paul writes for the Telegraph every week, so if you go on Telegraph onto the main site, and then there's I think it's called the fantasy section rather than fantasy football, fantasy section. You can see all Paul's.
That's some other content.
It's all Paul's tips in there as well. Don't forget, if you go on to Fantasy Football Hub, and I am super excited for this one as well. So my team reveals, my multi-format team reveal, will be live every single week for Fantasy Football Hub members. I update it on maybe like a Friday morning. I used to do it a bit earlier, but I just find it more and more difficult to get all the it's sort of last minute things. But for those who don't know as well, Lee Giles, who is in the chat and is one of the greatest fantasy football managers of all time, across all 3 formats, is also doing team reveals exclusively as well this season for Fantasy Football Hub. So if you subscribe to the Hub, you get mine every week. You also get Lee Giles as well. And in so many of my Dream Team mini leagues last year, especially, I think I finished 21st overall, and Lee Giles finished, I think it was 12th overall. It's good stuff, and Lee is an excellent manager across all formats as well, so it's well worth it. If you do want to join the Hub, it's 50% off. Link in the description on both YouTube and also on the podcast versions as well. I suppose all that's left is to wish everyone the very, very best of luck for the coming season. Might be back next week, more likely the week after. But yeah, we will see you all soon, and best of luck, everyone.